if we give you 3 minutes to kick off with a statement concerning yourself, yeah?
Recording in progress.
Thank you for arranging this meeting, and thanks to the PSC for arranging this hustings. My name is Nadia Klok, and I am the London Secretary and London Region Founder of the Workers' Party. I've been with the Workers' Party since nearly its beginning, 2019, with George. I have always been a firm believer that we should have always had a free Palestine, most of my life, and for every conflict that's happened, I've done my best to try and make people aware of the situation, the current situation and oppression that the Palestinian people have been going through. In recent months, since 2023, October 7th, I've been attending nearly all marches, screaming at the top of my lungs, so people can change politics, so that we don't have any more genocidal parties in Parliament. My policies and the policies of the Workers' Party is that of the socialist one. It's not of Tony Blair's socialism, it's that of Tony Benn's socialism. It's that to protect the working class and the most vulnerable. Because God knows that when we are dead and buried and our grandchildren are growing up, we'd like to know and believe that they are safe and they are protected from the evils of this world. And there's a social security system, a welfare system in place that would help them, God forbid, if they went on the wrong path. And this is what I stand for. Thank you.
Thank you. Baston, would you like to give an introduction to yourself as a candidate and to explain your policies?
Yes, thank you very much, Myles. Good evening to everyone in the room. Can you hear me, Myles?
I can certainly hear you. Can other people hear Baston?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's good.
Okay, great, thank you. So, as we all know, my name is Baston to Medici, Jaguar, and I'm with the Green Party. I've lived in Brent for the last 7 years, migrating to the UK just over 7 years, and I've lived here all throughout. I'm a trained barrister who's been called to the Bar of England and Wales, and I practice in various areas of law, including working with the University of London Refugee Law Clinic, where I assist refugees and asylum seekers to present their claim to the Home Office, particularly those who have come up against the front from the Home Office, rejection of their claims for whatever reasons. We help people like this put through their claims. These are also people who have exhausted the court system, so there is no right of appeal to the court, and the only thing they have is either just resubmit to the Home Office or get deported to wherever they're coming from, which in most cases are war-torn areas and places that we, as Britain, have been and has messed things up. Needless to say, I've seen a lot of gruesome things among these group of people. I've seen how inhumane they've been treated, and how life could be a little bit better for them if people just listened to their story. I've worked alongside on landlords and tenants issue, where landlords are refusing to either do repairs that are much needed, or just want to evict their tenants because they want to raise the rent, or whatever other reason that legislation allowed them to do, to the prejudice, of course, of their tenants. As I mentioned, as I said, I'm standing for the Green Party. The Green Party has the agenda for a fairer, greener country. We're offering real hope and real change. Now, as a party, we have built a momentum over the years and becoming a party, in fact the only party with what I would call the grips and the minds capable of taking on the challenge that this country faces, and also the challenge on an international level. And in truth, we have been making the two major parties rethink their policies. We're calling out their errors and their inadequacies. Effectively, the Greens, as I imagine, will become the true opposition. And I should stress that we have done all of this with merely one MP in Parliament. And just imagine what we could accomplish with more MPs in Parliament.
I'm going to, so Baston, I'm going to ask you to curtail it at the moment because we'll be coming back to specific policies and issues, and you could probably elaborate on them then, but to try and keep a system of equality in contributions, I'll cut you off now, if I may. I will mention that there are 6 candidates in Brent West, and I can rapidly dispose of those who didn't respond to the invitation. There's a Reform UK candidate, there is a Liberal Democrat, there is a Conservative. None of these responded to the invitations put out to each of them by PSC national body. There was also an invitation put out to Barry Gardiner, the incumbent Labour, or the former Labour MP, I should say, in Brent North, who is standing for Brent West, and he has given a very long answer by email to the 6 questions that were put to him by PSC. And I'm going to rapidly read through those, and we can regard this as his spoken contribution, if I can do it like that. So he says, let me address each question in turn, setting out what I've already done. The first question, to publicly demand and actively work to ensure an immediate, complete and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. He says he was the first MP to go on the mainstream media and demand an immediate and permanent ceasefire on October the 30th. And on the BBC One, on that date, he condemned the bombardment of Gaza as the collective punishment of innocent civilians and called for a ceasefire, also advocating a 2-state solution. On November the 1st, he told ITV he disagreed with his party leader's position and spoke of the progress and hoped that an immediate ceasefire would bring progress. He talks about the mistaken position of Keir Starmer arguing for an humanitarian pause. He said we should take and exert moral leadership in demanding a ceasefire. He made a further appearance on the Today programme on the 15th of November to that end. He says, I'm pleased that my party has finally come round to agreeing that an immediate ceasefire is necessary. I'm sorry it took the leadership so long. The question number 2 was, will you stand up for the rights and dignity of Palestinian refugees by supporting the immediate and full restoration of UK funding to UNRWA and ensuring it can fulfil its mandate? His response to that is, I've demanded the reinstatement of UNRWA and its resumption of funding by the UK. It is significant that the former President of the Supreme Court, Baroness Hale of Richmond, along with 1,100 lawyers and other legal academics, signed a joint legal opinion saying that the suspending funding to UNRWA puts the UK in breach of its international obligations. I'm pleased that the restoration of funding to UNRWA is now Labour Party policy. Number 3, would you support a comprehensive 2-way embargo on the trade in weapons, components and military technology with Israel to ensure that Britain and its citizens are not complicit in aiding and abetting crimes regarding genocide? He says he signed the early day motion on December the 11th, number 177, about arms sales to Israel, calling on the government to immediately halt all transfers of military equipment and technology, including components, to Israel, and to suspend the issuing of new licenses. He wrote further on the 27th of March to the Foreign Secretary, setting out rules governing the licensing regime under the International Arms Trade Treaty. He further pointed out that UK-made weapons are being used in Gaza, particularly parts of Israeli F-16 fighter jets. On these grounds, he's demanded an immediate suspension of all arms exports licenses to Israel. Number 4, do you support moves by the ICJ and ICC to hold Israel to account for breaches of international humanitarian law and the outcomes of those processes, including by insisting that Britain must uphold any arrest warrants issued by the ICC? And he says, yes, the importance of these orders cannot be overestimated. On the 7th of May, in an interview and panel discussion on Times Radio, he asserted the vital importance of the ICJ and the need to understand that the UK must act decisively now in compliance with it. It doesn't actually say that people should be arrested if they alight on these shores. Number 5, do you support the suspension of the 2030 roadmap for UK-Israel bilateral relations and negotiations towards an enhanced trade agreement in response to grave violations on international law and the immediate imposition of a ban on trade with illegal Israeli settlements? And he says we've seen increasing breaches of international law in the West Bank, an increase in violence against Palestinians, the demolition of homes and property, and deliberate and systematic spread of Israeli settlements. Is a deliberate campaign to annex more of Palestinian land in the West Bank, making settlements a fait accompli. The suspension of the 2030 roadmap is entirely consistent with his views. And does he uphold the freedom to advocate for Palestinian rights through the democratic processes, including BDS? And he says, I've always upheld the right to free speech. I made a clear distinction between the incitement to hatred, which is illegal, and the important right to speak freely. The right to free speech is vacuous if it doesn't encompass the right to offend. So he was proud to say he was one of the only 10 Labour MPs who voted against the anti-BDS bill. I trust the above responses make clear that I've been consistent and clear in my principled support for the people of Palestine. And finally, I've been sometimes asked, I think this is important, why I remain a member of Labour Friends of Israel. I point out that I'm also a Labour I'm also a member of Labour Friends of Palestine in the Middle East. And just as this doesn't lead anyone to think that I support the actions of Hamas, nor should my membership of Labour Friends of Israel lead anyone to think that I support the actions of the Israeli government. There are plenty of honest, decent people in Israel who loathe the Netanyahu government. So it goes on in that vein. He says, should I be re-elected on Thursday, I will speak out and continue to speak out on all injustices or acts that are in breach of international law. Sincerely, Barry Gardiner. So that's Barry Gardiner's contribution to tonight, and as he's not here, we don't need to ask him specific questions or answers. We don't need to ask for answers to specific questions, but what I was planning to do was to try and rotate the answers given by the two candidates. So I'm going to go back to Baston next to ask the questions that have been asked Baston by PSC. These are the questions that you've just heard me pose to, the answers to which have been given by Barry Gardiner. So excuse me while I dig those out.